What is going on, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Knicks Media Live show. It is hectic in Knicks land. We are still on the wait. We are waiting for Leon Rose to get the Isaiah Hardenstein replacement. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Jake Asman himself. Jake, welcome to the show, my man. Good to have you.
Richie, always a pleasure to join you. And any chance we get to talk Knicks as opposed to the usual Jet combo we do is always awesome. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get your thoughts here, Jake, because there's so much buzz, so much energy surrounding this Knicks team right when the offseason kicks off. I want to get your thoughts about the Bridges trade, the OG coming back, missing out on Hardenstein, and now we are waiting for the New York Knicks to replace an Isaiah Hardenstein. So, folks, welcome to the Knicks Media Show. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday. Good morning to everybody in the chat. We got Knicks Fan 518. We got Outlaw. We got the usual suspects on Dios is in the house. Lawrence, hope you guys are having a fantastic morning. Don't forget to simply hit the like button on your way in and check out Jake Asman's YouTube channel if you are a Jets fan. He is absolutely killing it over there, representing gangrene the right way. Also does some other New York sports over there as well. So let's get straight into business, Jake. I want to first get your thoughts of the reaction you had when the Knicks traded for Bridges, because that kind of came out of nowhere, right? I feel like last week it was a day or two before the NBA draft. It was quiet. Free agency didn't start yet. You know, there was an Alex Caruso trade to the Thunder that kind of started the NBA offseason. And then all of a sudden, everything that Knicks fans have been waiting for was that missing piece of the Nova boys to get Bridges to the Knicks. What was your overall reaction when the Knicks landed him?
The initial reaction, Richie, was shock and just sheer surprise. Not because I didn't like the move. I want to make it very clear. I believe the Knicks adding Mikal Bridges was the best move they could have made this offseason, period, end of story. But the initial reaction was surprise because I just did not think he'd actually be available for the Knicks to acquire. I did not think the Knicks and the Nets would make this type of deal. They have not made a deal, those two franchises, since the 80s. So the fact that it actually occurred and it's involving a big-time player, a star-level player going from Brooklyn to Manhattan, I just didn't see it happening. I love that it did happen, but my initial reaction was, what? Really? Wow, I can't believe they were able to pull this off.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, Jake, and I feel like Knicks fans have been waiting for this, where it kind of felt like a far-gone dream. After we got Josh Hart last year at the trade deadline, we're like, oh, wow, we got half the Nova championship, boys. Imagine. And then that summer, we bring in Dante DiVincenzo. And we're like, whoa, all we need is Bridges. If only he was, first of all, drafted by the Knicks, because they had an opportunity to draft him instead of Kevin Knox. And then it kind of, for me at least, felt like a pipe dream. Like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome in a fantasy world of Bridges actually be on the Knicks with Brunson, Hart, and DiVincenzo? Well, no, that was Leon Rose's plan the entire time. He went out there and got his guy. And then the best part about this move, Jake, is they did not trade for Bridges to replace OG Anunoby. They wanted to pair him up with OG, who is one of the best wing defenders in the entire NBA. And now you pair them up together. That is what makes this Knicks team dangerous. What's your thoughts of the OG Anunoby extension, giving him a huge, huge contract, the biggest contract in Knicks history for OG Anunoby?
Look, it is a lot of money, but you had to do it because if you didn't pay him, there would have been other teams that would have given him the exact same deal. Now, the Knicks gave him the extra year. That's the benefit of having his bird rights. They could give him that extra year in the new CBA, but they had to do it. Once you traded for OG Anunoby and you knew that he was going to be a free agent, you knew that you were going to have to pay him because that was the whole point of adding him. He's a core piece. We saw what the record was when both he and Randall were healthy with Jalen Brunson back in January. They were 15-2. We saw what happened once OG went down in the Indiana series after game 2. I believe if he was healthy, forget all the other litany of injuries the Knicks had. If OG had stayed healthy against Indiana, they win that series probably in 5 games. So we know his impact. Anyone who's watched him play knows the impact he has on both sides of the ball. You're gunning for the defending champ, Boston Celtics. You need guys who could defend Tatum, defend Brown, and to pair up OG with Bridges gives the Knicks arguably 2 of the best wing defenders in the NBA. So it's a lot of money. You pray he's healthy come playoff time. You know he's not going to play every game. That's the reality of OG Anunoby. But at the end of the day, it's a risk the Knicks had to take. The same risk the Celtics took with Porzingis and his health concerns. Ultimately, you have to take those risks when you're going for it like the Knicks are. So I get why they did it. It's a lot of money, but it's a move they needed to make.
Exactly. And I feel like in today's NBA, you need to have at least one elite wing to win in this league, especially if you want to go after a championship. But let's be honest with ourselves, Jake. The Knicks have not had an elite wing in a long time. And they traded for one in OG Anunoby at the right before the new league year of the 2024 year. And then we get Bridges. So now we don't just have one, Jake. We have two wings, and you can also argue those two players are not even the two best players on the Knicks team, because we have Jalen Brunson as our lead of the head of the snake, the floor general, the superstar that he is, and we have Julius Randle coming back, who is going to be the Knicks' second leading scorer next to Jalen Brunson. And then not to mention the depth now that we have with Josh Hart and DiVincenzo probably going to be coming off the bench. So Knicks fans should be very, very excited about what Leon Rose has done. But Knicks fans are not satisfied, Jake, because unfortunately for us, we were not able to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, my biggest thing about this offseason leading into this, Jake, was all I want the Knicks to do was run it back. I felt like this Knicks team was good enough, if healthy, to go all the way to compete with the Celtics. As you mentioned, if OG did not get hurt in that playoff series, I think we would have beat the Pacers easily. And I felt like with the healthy team just last year, we would have done good things. So I'm like, you know what, just run it back. But Leon Rose is like, nah, we're not just going to run it back. We're going to place Bojan Bogdanovic with Bridges. But unfortunately for us, Isaiah Hardenstein gets the bag on the open market. He leaves to go to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now the New York Knicks are looking for a new replacement to back up Mitchell Robinson. So what was your reaction when you saw Hardenstein, unfortunately, leave the New York Knicks to sign with OKC?
My initial reaction was good for Isaiah Hartenstein because there was just no way the Knicks could have kept him. I mean, the most they could offer him was $18 million per season. He got $29 million per year. And people could say, oh, have fun at OKC. You're irrelevant. The Thunder are really good. They were the number one seed in the West. They're going to be contending for years to come. So you can't fault him. If it was a different team, if it was like the Pistons throwing the bag at him, then maybe he would have taken a deal with the Knicks lesser than the full 4-year commitment so then he could reset and hit the free agent market again, maybe next summer or something along those lines. But once you saw the money and the team, you can't blame him. If it was close, I truly do think he would have wanted to have stayed with the Knicks. But because of the CBA, it's not the Knicks' fault. Because of just the way the CBA is structured, they only could offer him 4 years, $72 million. And once he got the opportunity to make $29 million AAV, you knew the Knicks were not going to be able to keep him. So I wish him well, and it's a big loss for the Knicks. But I won't sit here and do doom and gloom. You would make the Mikal Bridges trade over Isaiah Hartenstein 10 out of 10 times. And ultimately, as good as Isaiah Hartenstein was a year ago at this time, he was an afterthought. He was a nice role player. We didn't think anything of him. He got his opportunity when Mitch went down last year, took full advantage of it. Good for him. Now it's on Tom Thibodeau and this Knicks coaching staff and Leon Rose in the front office to find some solutions at backup center. I think they'll be able to figure something out. Maybe not replace Hartenstein, but it is what it is. And I think if you're a Knicks fan, you got to have some faith in the front office and the coaching staff that they have a plan in place.
110%. And I just want to touch on what you just said to finish off your take there, because let's be honest with ourselves, Jake, that's not been the case for us Knicks fans to have trust in the Knicks brains upstairs in the front office and even the coaching staff, which is why I'm not panicking either. I loved Isaiah Hartenstein. I wish the Knicks brought him back, but it's not doom and gloom. I feel like some Knicks fans are overreacting to this because who made Isaiah Hardenstein Isaiah Hardenstein? Now, I'm not taking anything away from the work that he put in, but Tom Thibodeau has proven to be one of the better coaches in the entire NBA, and I got confidence in him in whatever player the Knicks bring in free agency or maybe in the trade market, or maybe it's Jericho Sims taking a step, or maybe it's the rookie Ariel Hukporti from Germany to step in. Tom Thibodeau has shown that he can put his players in the right situations to succeed and develop them and get the most out of their talent. And that's why I'm not panicking right now. And you look at what Isaiah Hardenstein was when he came to the Knicks. Let's not forget, after his first season, or even the first half of the first season, he was not playing good basketball. And then last offseason, it was like, all right, he's the backup behind Mitch. And then when Mitch went down, he stepped in and balled out. So kudos to Hardenstein. He got paid what he deserved, and he's getting paid more than Jalen Brunson. The fact is, the Knicks were never going to offer that. They were not allowed to offer that. So let's move the page. I want to get your thoughts of Mitchell Robinson, because I think the consensus around Mitchell Robinson is very simple. We all know when he's healthy, he's dominant, and he is one of the better offensive rebounders in the league. He shut down Joel Embiid in the playoffs, but his issue is health. And that is a big concern, of course. So what's your thoughts of the Knicks big men right now with Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, the new draft pick of Okporti, and maybe the new player the New York Knicks will bring in, whether that's on the open market, maybe bringing back Precious Achiuwa, or they're linked to a lot of other trade candidates as well. What are your thoughts of the center position heading into the season so far?
Yeah, I think they definitely need to add someone. I know they like the idea of Jericho Sims maybe taking another step forward, and you got to trust the Knicks player development system. But the name to watch, you heard trade rumors of Walker Kessler coming over, and maybe that's a move they can make if the Jazz make him available. 7-foot guy would be going into his third season, has been pretty durable in his career. So that's maybe something you could look at if you're the Knicks. But once again, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. If you're a Knick fan, you have to put your faith in Leon Rose and this front office. More times than not, they made the right move. I mean, heck, even signing Isaiah Hartenstein was like an afterthought free agent signing 2 years ago. And look at the value he provided. You have to have faith that the Knicks will have a plan in place. And also, I think when you look at how the Knicks might close out games, there's a scenario where they don't actually have a center on the floor in the closing five when you just look at the roster construction right now. I know Precious Achiuwa is still out there. I thought he gave the Knicks some good minutes down the stretch. High energy guy, native New Yorker. Maybe he'd be willing to take a little less to stay here if you could find a way to get him back. I don't hate that plan, but I don't think the Knicks are going to go out there and be able to make this like big time splash. But there are options, and I think you put your faith in Leon Rose and company that they'll do something to upgrade the backup center spot.
Yeah, and listen, OG is not a center, but he's a guy that's proven to be able to guard 1 through 5. So if the Knicks wanted to run a lineup out there with Brunson, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, and Randall and OG, or you got Bridges mixed in with Brunson, OG, and Rand. I mean, the opportunities are endless. I think the Knicks are going to play a little more small this year, and I'm not saying they're going to start off the game with Randall at the 5 or anything like that, but I think, like you said, the closing 5 could very well be Brunson, DiVincenzo, OG, Bridges, and Randall. Like, there's something along, and we still got Deuce McBride. We still have Josh Hart. Like, this Knicks team is so deep where Thibodeau can get very creative across this entire roster. Now, Deuce McBride has been linked in some trade rumors, like for Walker Kessler, for example, because Walker Kessler, he's a really good talent from Utah. He had a very good rookie season for them. Last year, he kind of did not take a leap like the Utah Jazz was expecting. And if you wanted to trade for a Kessler, you may have to include Deuce from a financial perspective plus draft capital. I love Deuce McBride, Jake. I'm a big Deuce fan. But now after the draft pick of, Tyler Kolek from Marquette. Now, a lot of people are saying that Deuce McBride is expendable, and Kolek could be maybe the backup behind Jalen Brunson. He's more the floor general that can actually control things. He had 4 years in college, so maybe people feel like he's ready to go. What's your thoughts of including Deuce in a potential trade for Walker Kessler? Because me personally, I'm not ready to trade Deuce. I love him.
Yeah, I think Deuce still has a lot more upside, and he's already a really good defender. I think we saw his shooting come along. He's also on one of the best contracts in the NBA. So I'm not in such a rush just to jettison Deuce McBride. I'm not saying he's not expendable. For the right player, he is. I don't know if Walker Kessler is the right player to include Deuce McBride, though, in that type of deal. I have to think about that a lot more before I throw Deuce in there, because I think we saw Deuce get a lot better once he got the opportunity to play. I don't think he's even close to hitting his ceiling. So I don't want to get rid of him when I think he's still an ascending player.
So what's your thoughts about the moves around the NBA, right? Starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers, they definitely have improved their roster. We beat them in round number 1. They added another weapon to team up with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. They brought in Eric Gordon in free agency and on a veteran minimum. They brought back Kelly Oubre. They bring in Andre Drummond. How do you think this Knicks team can match up against the Philadelphia 76ers? And do you think Paul George moves the needle for Philadelphia? Because let's not forget, the Sixers were the 2nd seed in the East behind the Celtics before Joel Embiid got hurt, and then they went on a losing streak, and then they got healthy again, and then they matched up against the Knicks in the first round. I remember some Knicks fans were like, "Oh no, we should lose on purpose so we can avoid the Sixers in the first round." But I never had that mindset. I wanted to verse the best, which the Knicks did, and they beat them up. So what's your thoughts of the 76ers offseason moves and how the New York Knicks stack up against them?
Look, the Sixers clearly got better by adding Paul George. No one can dispute that. That said, it really feels like it's going to come down to which NBA team in the East is the healthiest at the right time come playoff time. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the Knicks and the Sixers, I think they're very close. I think they're two evenly matched teams right now. Embiid could maybe be the difference maker because he's the best overall player in the series, but he's got to be healthy. And he's never been to a conference finals yet. So he certainly has a lot to prove. Paul George also is a guy that has missed a ton of time with injuries if you look at his game logs over the last several years. So really, it's cliche, but the team that's the healthiest might be the team that goes the furthest. And from a Boston standpoint, they've earned the right to still be declared the best team in the NBA, certainly the best team in the conference. But there's a reason why, Richie, we have seen 6 different champions the last 6 years in basketball. It's hard to go back to back. The way the NBA now is, it is hard to be a dynasty. So there's going to be opportunities for several teams in the East to challenge Boston. And I think the Knicks and Sixers are certainly right there, and they've made their teams better. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's definitely the team to watch out for that I feel like definitely improved the most in terms of the what team they're stacking up in the Eastern Conference outside of the Boston Celtics. Folks, we're live here on Knicks Media with Jake Asman. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way into the show, folks. We got well over 250 people live watchers with just 35 likes. Let's smash the like button if you guys are enjoying it here live in the AM here on Knicks Media. And don't forget to subscribe to Knicks Media if you're new. We hit 13,000 subscribers a few days ago. We're already on our way to 14K subs. So thank you all so much for the support. Great to have a good friend of mine, Jake Asman, on the show to talk some Knicks basketball. So Jake, what's your prediction of this upcoming season? Like when you, as a Knicks fan, like when we landed Bridges and then we brought back OG, I was like trying to contain myself because listen, as Jets fans, we have high expectations, and now Knicks fans kind of feel a little more justified. We actually have playoffs to like look back on, right? We have back-to-back playoff appearances in the second round. We know what Jalen Brunson is in the playoffs. Julius Randle has to improve in the postseason. You see how deep this Knicks roster is. As a Knicks fan, what's your expectations this year? Because in my opinion, we have a window to win a title. Am I crazy to say that, Jake?
No, you're not. And, you know, you look at the betting odds, that is the indication as well. You look at where the Knicks have been kind of knocking on the door, now adding Mikal Bridges to it, having a full season of OG, some of the other improvements that you could potentially get for some of the younger players on the roster taking a step forward. They obviously are a title contender. Now, what should your expectation be? Look, I can't sit here and say that the expectation's championship or bust when you haven't been to the NBA Finals since 1999. You haven't been to a conference finals in 24 years. But I think after what we have seen from this Knicks team the last few years, I think the goal this year is to challenge Boston and get to at least an Eastern Conference Finals and take your best chance, take your best shot at them if that's the team you end up playing. And look, at the end of the day, they have a team that could do it. There's no guarantees. They got to be healthy. But this is the first time in a very long time, probably the first time in our like conscious awakening of being like a Knicks fan. Because, you know, I was around in 94. I was around in 99, but I don't remember it. I'm certainly too young. So this is like the first time we can actually go into a season and truly think, hey, you know, the Knicks have a legitimate chance of getting to an NBA Finals.
Yeah, exactly. Last year, there was a lot of hype and high expectations from the Knicks, but it was more like, all right, let's try to get out of the second round, right? Because that's kind of the steps we're looking at. We went to the second round and lost to the Heat 2 years ago. And then this past season, we're like, okay, let's get into the Eastern Conference Finals maybe. This close. Now, we want to go all the way, okay? This Knicks team is built, and the best part about this team, Jake, is it's not like this is 1 year window to win. This Knicks team has a window of 2 to 3 years because the guys that they have under contract are here for the long run. The only guy that is potentially out next year is Julius Randle, who is under contract for 2 more years, but he does have a player option after the season, so he could opt out, and we'll see what the Knicks do in terms of their extending their own players, whether they renegotiate Julius Randle's contract. Will Jalen Brunson sign his extension? A lot of other news to find out. We have Josh Hart on a really cheap contract based off the market, Dante DiVincenzo on a cheap contract. You talked about Deuce McBride. You still got Mitchell Robinson for another 2 years. So a lot of guys are locked up, and then not to mention Bridges, who is on a very cheap contract for his talent for the next 2 seasons. So the Knicks have a window, and that is something that I really am excited for. I am curious to get your thoughts of Julius Randle, because I do feel like Julius Randle is a polarizing figure amongst Knicks fans, and I don't know where you stand on this, Jake, but it drives me nuts every time I hear Knicks fans slander Julius Randle's name and talk to him like he's a bum and he's this guy that just we should just ship off. And even in the middle of the season when he got hurt, we were like, oh, good. Randall's hurt. We're a better team without him. What? I mean, did you not see what the Knicks were doing when Randall was healthy and when we traded for OG? I mean, you said it. We were 15-2, went on a 9-game winning streak, unstoppable. I feel like Julius Randall is the one piece of this Knicks team that even some Knicks fans are forgetting about is what makes this Knicks team a contender even more. Because guess what, folks? He's going to be the second leading scorer next to Brunson while we still have Bridges and Anunoby and all the other guys around him. So what's your overall thoughts of Julius Randle or what you can expect from him coming off that unfortunate injury he suffered?
Yeah, I think the key word with Randall is like unfortunate because we started to see in January, like Randall was at his best in the role the Knicks finally had him in that probably suits him the best. I don't think Randall's a one, but I think Randall's a really good player. He's been an all NBA player 2 of the last 3 years, right? This guy's been an all-star now twice with the New York Knicks. He took on the challenge of coming here. You know, he's been durable outside of, this injury he suffered in January. The guy's a warrior. He wants to play. I think at the end of the day, we have to see what this team looks like with Randall back out there, with OG, with Bridges, with Brunson now being clearly the guy. Randall is under a lot of scrutiny, under a lot of pressure now to perform come playoff time next year. And I think he's better equipped to handle it based on what he's been through these last couple of years. But it's interesting. The Knick fan who is trashing Julius Randle is now using Randall as a reason behind why the New York Knicks are just as good as the Boston Celtics are better than the Philadelphia Sixers. The same people who said Randall's got to go, he stinks, he's this, he's that, we're now using Randall's injury as a reasoning behind why the Knicks didn't get by Indiana, why the Knicks are now just as good with Randall healthy against Boston. So you can't have it both ways, Knicks fans. I think at the end of the day, Julius Randle's proven to be a damn good player. He's going to have to perform come playoff time, but I think we should appreciate what he brings to the table because on this team, I think he's in the proper role with Brunson, Bridges, Dante on a given night could be your leading scorer, as we saw in the playoffs. Like they have a lot more answers to the test than they've had from the first go around with Randall as the only guy against the Hawks, where he was clearly overmatched and not ready for that role.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Randall's what started this entire Knicks movement. I mean, he came here when we missed out on KD and Kyrie, and he had a terrible season the first year with Fizdale. We'd bring in Thibodeau, and then he brings a team with Elfrid Payton as the point guard to the playoffs, by the way, for the first time in 7 years. And then he had an offseason where we bring in Kemba Walker, you bring in Brunson, and I think Julius Randle is so good enough that now with the talent around him, he is going to have his best season. He was having his best season with the Knicks last year, and I know the big narrative around him, which is true, he has to step up when it comes playoff time, which is why last year was so devastating because I felt like last year, this past season was his opportunity to finally get the monkey off his back of stepping up in the playoffs because all the pressure's off his shoulders with Brunson being the primary ball handler and now with all the weapons around him. All he needs to do is just eat down low. When he has one-on-one opportunities, you take advantage of it. When they double team you when you drive to the paint, you dish it out like he's proved before. This is what I tell people, Jake. A 24-point, 10 rebounds, 5 assists power forward does not grow on trees. It's time to start appreciating who Julius Randle is. Rat Diddy with a $5 super chat. The great Rat Diddy. I appreciate you tuning into Knicks Media, my man. Not sure on this Kessler kid. Seems a bit soft. Small trade for Nick Richards. Re-signed Precious. And we are right there with the Celtics. Interesting calling the Kessler soft. Now, Kessler has played for the USA basketball with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson. I wouldn't call him soft. I mean, he is pretty good defensively, and he has a lot of rebounding abilities. He's also just 2 years into his NBA career. A lot of Knicks fans want Walker Kessler. My only issue with that, Jake, is the price we'd have to pay to secure him, which is why I'm not too sure. But the one thing I do know is Leon Rose has a plan. So what's your thoughts of Rat Diddy Super Chat? Maybe prioritizing bringing in Precious instead of the trade for one of Richards or Kessler.
Yeah, I mentioned Precious earlier. I think he's a good fit for the Knicks. I think he fits Thibodeau's system. He plays hard. He's an effort guy. He could come in and play the backup center role, and you don't feel like you're screwed when he's out there. So if they can't get Kessler, if the price is too much for him or some of the other names that have been mentioned, I'm on board with that. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's the route they end up going as well. I mean, Precious is a guy that's from the New York area. He spends his time in the offseason still. I saw in New York, he was at the Subway Series game last week. So to me, that's not the worst idea if they can't pull off, a significant upgrade for center because the cost out there is too much.
I agree. Folks, the Knicks are in the heart of the offseason. We're waiting for the Isaiah Hardenstein replacement news to break, whether it's today, tomorrow, who knows. But expect the Knicks to bring in a player in free agency or make a trade for a center. As of right now, Mitchell Robinson is our guy with Jericho Sims and Ariel Hukporti with the rest of the crew. That's going to wrap up this show here on Knicks Media. Jake, thank you so much for tuning in and coming on here to talk some Knicks ball. Right when the Knicks hype is here, I'm like, you know what? I got to get Jake on the show, man, because there's so much exciting things to talk about. We usually talk about the Jets, as we always do, but it was great to have you talking some Knicks, Jake.
Richie, appreciate you having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure indeed, guys. I'm Richie. He's Jake. Don't forget to check out his YouTube channel, Jake Asman. I'll see you guys later today. Peace and love as always. Hit the like button on your way out. Let's go, Knicks. Peace out, folks.